I was about to slip on my shoes for Saturday lunch at Brandon's place in Los Angeles when my phone buzzed. The text was from Gerald, my accountant. His message made my blood run cold. "Call me right now. Do not go to your son's house." I stared at those words, my hands trembling. Gerald never contacted me on weekends. In 15 years of managing my finances, he'd never sent anything like this. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. My fingers fumbled with the phone as I dialed Gerald's number. He answered on the first ring. "Lori, thank God you called before leaving." His voice carried an urgency I'd never heard before. "Gerald, what's happening? You're scaring me. I need you to sit down." He paused, and I heard papers shuffling. "I was working late last night, updating your quarterly investment reports. That's when I noticed something that didn't sit right with me." I lowered myself onto the edge of my bed, still holding one shoe. "What did you find?" "3 weeks ago, someone accessed your financial accounts using your login credentials. They downloaded multiple documents, your will, trust papers, property deeds, all your investment statements." He let that sink in before continuing. "The IP address traces back to Brandon and Heather's home address in Los Angeles." The room seemed to tilt. "That can't be right. Brandon wouldn't." "I wish I was wrong, Lori. But there's more." Gerald's voice softened with sympathy. "I couldn't sleep after finding this, so I kept digging. Brandon has been in contact with an estate attorney, the kind that specializes in what they call elder care transitions." My throat tightened. "What does that mean?" "I monitor your business email account, remember? The one Arthur set up years ago that you rarely check. Some communications were accidentally copied there. Brandon's been discussing incapacity planning and nursing home placement options. Has been researching how to obtain power of attorney and establish guardianship." I stood up, pacing now. "This has to be a misunderstanding. Maybe he's planning for the future, being responsible." "Lori." Gerald's tone turned firm. "He made an appointment with a neurologist last week. According to the email confirmation I found, he told the doctor he's bringing his mother in for memory issues." "You don't have memory issues. They're building a medical case against you." The shoe dropped from my hand. I thought about the lunch invitation, how insistent Brandon had been that I come today specifically, how Heather had called twice to confirm I was coming. My chest felt like someone was squeezing it. "What were they planning to do today?" I whispered. "I don't know for certain. But people don't usually move this aggressively unless they're planning to have someone sign documents, legal papers that would give them control." He paused. "Lori, do not go to that lunch. Do not sign anything. We need to understand the full scope of what's happening before you take another step." I sank back onto the bed, my vision blurring with tears. "Brandon is my only child, Gerald. Arthur and I gave him everything. Why would he do this? I don't have that answer. But I know this. Whatever their reasons, what they're doing is wrong. And it's my job to protect you and your assets." That's what Arthur would have wanted. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The lunch invitation sat on my nightstand, written in Heather's careful handwriting. "We miss you, Mom. Let's spend quality time together." I'd been so happy receiving it, thinking my son and daughter-in-law finally wanted to reconnect after months of seeming distant. Now I saw it for what it was, not an olive branch, a trap. I texted Brandon that I wasn't feeling well and couldn't make lunch. His response came within seconds. "Mom, this is exactly what I've been worried about. These sudden illness episodes. Maybe we should get you checked out by a doctor soon." My hands shook as I read his words. He was already setting the narrative, already planting the seeds of incompetence. How long had he been doing this? How many people had he told that his mother was declining? I called Gerald back. "I need to know everything. Can you find out more?" "I'm already on it," he said. "But Lori, we might need to bring in an attorney. This could get complicated. Do whatever you need to do. I want to know what my son is planning." That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table in my Pasadena home, trying to make sense of how he'd gotten here. 3 years ago, I lost my husband Arthur to a sudden heart attack. He was 67, healthy, active. One morning he just didn't wake up. The grief nearly destroyed me. Arthur had been a successful aerospace engineer, brilliant and hardworking. Together, we'd built a comfortable life. Our house in Pasadena was worth about $1.1 million, paid off completely. Arthur's life insurance and our combined savings and investments brought our total estate to roughly $3.2 million. Not wealthy by California standards, but secure, comfortable. I thought I was doing fine. At 68, I was healthy and active. I volunteered at the Pasadena Public Library twice a week, took watercolor painting classes on Thursdays, had lunch with my friends Dorothy, Susan, and Margaret every Tuesday. I was living a good life, the kind Arthur would have wanted for me. Brandon was our only child, 42 years old now. He worked in tech sales, though I knew his commissions had dropped significantly in the past year. Had married Heather 6 years ago. She was 38, had worked in real estate but quit 2 years back. They rented an expensive house in Los Angeles. Always seemed to be living right at the edge of their means. Over the past 6 months, I'd noticed they'd become more attentive, more phone calls, more visits, more concern about my well-being. I'd been touched, thinking maybe losing Arthur had finally helped Brandon appreciate family, that maybe he was finally growing up, wanting a closer relationship with his mother. Now, sitting in my kitchen, I saw it all differently. They weren't building a relationship. They were building a case. I went through my files, looking for anything unusual. Then I started thinking about recent interactions, and pieces began clicking into place. 3 months ago, Heather had made a point of befriending my neighbor, Carol, who lived 2 houses down. I'd thought it was sweet. Now I remembered Heather asking Carol, "Have you noticed any changes in Lori? She seems a bit forgetful sometimes." Carol had mentioned it to me, laughing. "Heather's so caring, worrying about you like that." I'd brushed it off. Now I realized Heather was planting seeds, creating witnesses who might later testify about my supposed decline. There were other moments too. 2 months ago, Brandon had come for dinner, and I'd forgotten to turn on the oven for the roast. We'd ordered pizza instead, laughed about it, but Brandon had taken a photo of the raw roast, still sitting on the counter, saying, "This is such a funny memory." Now I wondered, was he documenting evidence? Last month, Heather had taken me to lunch and casually mentioned that her friend's mother had recently moved into a lovely senior living facility. "It's wonderful, Lori. She has so much less stress now. Maybe we should tour some of these places together, just to see what's available when you're ready." I'd said I wasn't ready, that I loved my home. Heather had smiled and said, of course, just thinking ahead, planning ahead, plotting ahead." My phone rang. "Gerald." "Lori, I found something else. Your landline voicemail. You mentioned you rarely check it. I barely remember I have a landline. It came with the internet package. There's a message from 2 months ago. A law firm called Stevenson and Associates. They're confirming Brandon's consultation about conservatorship proceedings for a family member. They reference your name specifically." The floor seemed to drop away. 2 months ago? Gerald, this has been planned for that long. At minimum. Possibly longer. These consultations don't happen overnight. This is premeditated. Lori. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling my heart hammer. What do I do? First, we document everything. Every email, every access log, every piece of evidence. Second, I'm connecting you with an attorney. Her name is Patricia Hoffman. She specializes in elder law and estate protection. She's tough, smart, and she's seen cases like this before. Cases like this? You mean other people's children have done this to them? Gerald's voice was gentle. More often than you'd think. Financial elder abuse is more common than most people realize, and when it comes from family, it's the most painful. After hanging up, I walked through my house, this home that Arthur and I had bought 35 years ago, where Wed raised Brandon, where Wed celebrated birthdays and holidays, where Arthur had died in our bed. This was my sanctuary, and my son was trying to take it from me. I looked at family photos on the mantle. Brandon as a baby, as a child, his high school graduation, his wedding day. In every photo, he was smiling, happy, loved. Wed given him everything. Piano lessons and summer camps, and college tuition. Support when he changed careers, help with his wedding expenses, gifts for every holiday. And now he saw me as an obstacle to money he believed was rightfully his. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd felt since losing Arthur. By Sunday morning, I'd made a decision. I called Gerald at home. "I want to go to the lunch after all." "Lori, I don't think that's wise. I need to see this for myself." I need to understand what they're really planning. If I cancel again, they'll know something's wrong. They'll accelerate whatever they're doing. I took a breath. I'll be careful. I'll be watchful. But I need to look my son in the eye and see who he really is. Gerald was quiet for a moment. California is a two-party consent state for recording, but you can take detailed notes afterwards. Document everything they say, everything they do. I will. I promise. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing a bright blue blouse and comfortable slacks. I looked at myself in the mirror. Clear eyes, steady hands, sharp mind. There was nothing wrong with me. Nothing declining or incompetent or vulnerable. I was a grown woman with full control of my faculties, and I was about to watch my son try to convince me otherwise. The drive to Brandon's house took 45 minutes. Their rental was in a trendy Los Angeles neighborhood, a modern two-story with a manicured lawn. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed things I hadn't paid attention to before. The new Audi in the driveway, probably $50,000. The expensive outdoor furniture on the patio, the professionally landscaped yard. Where was the money coming from? Brandon's sales commissions were down. Heather didn't work, yet they seemed to be spending more than ever. Brandon opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a hug that felt performative. Mom, so glad you're feeling better. We were really worried yesterday. Just a little headache. Nothing serious. Heather emerged from the kitchen, also hugging me. Lori, you look wonderful. Come in, come in. I made your favorite chicken salad. The house was even nicer than I remembered from my last visit 3 months ago. New leather furniture in the living room. Expensive-looking artwork on the walls. A massive television mounted above the fireplace. I did quick math in my head. The furniture alone was probably $20,000. The TV, another $3,000. We settled in the dining room, and Heather served lunch on china I didn't recognize. New dishes, too. The pattern looked like Wedgwood. This is lovely, I said, meaning the plates. Oh, thank you, Heather beamed. We've been updating a few things, making the house feel more like home. It was a rental. Why invest so much in a rental? Conversation started casually. Brandon talked about work, though he was vague about details. Heather mentioned a yoga class she'd been taking. I talked about my painting class, a still life of pears I was working on. Then Brandon cleared his throat. Actually, Mom, there's something Heather and I wanted to discuss with you. Here it comes, I thought. I set down my fork and folded my hands in my lap. We've been talking a lot lately about your situation, he continued. Living alone in that big house in Pasadena. It's a lot to manage, isn't it? I manage just fine. Of course, of course. He exchanged a glance with Heather. But it's a 3-bedroom house, all that yard work. The maintenance, property taxes must be significant. The house is paid off, Brandon. And I hire someone for the yard work. Heather leaned forward, her expression carefully sympathetic. We've just been thinking about your quality of life, Lori. There are wonderful senior communities now. Places designed for active adults, built-in social activities, no maintenance worries, everything on one level so no stairs to navigate. She slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside were glossy brochures for senior living facilities. Places with names like Sunrise Villa and Golden Years Estates. The photos showed smiling elderly people playing cards and doing Tai Chi in group settings. These look very institutional. I said carefully. Not at all, Brandon said quickly. They're like resort living. And Mom, you'd have so much less to worry about. No more property management, no more dealing with repairs and taxes and all that complicated stuff. I don't find it complicated. Another glance between them. Brandon's smile was getting tighter. The thing is, Mom, Dad left your finances in a pretty complex state. Multiple investment accounts, the trust structure, various holdings. It's a lot for anyone to manage, let alone. He trailed off, but the implication hung in the air. Let alone someone your age, let alone someone who might be slipping. What your son means, Heather said smoothly, is that we want to help make things easier for you. We've actually been talking to financial advisors about simplifying your portfolio. Brandon pulled out another folder. We had our attorney draw up some paperwork, just standard stuff, power of attorney documents, some trust amendments. It would let me help manage things for you, take that burden off your shoulders. He spread papers across the table. Legal documents, dense with text. I saw my name, saw signature lines. This seems like something I should review with my own attorney, I said. Brandon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Mom, Gerald is your accountant, not an attorney, and these are really standard documents. Our lawyer said they're exactly what most families do in situations like this. Situations like what? When someone is getting older and needs help with complex decisions. There it was, the assumption of incompetence. The gentle suggestion that I wasn't capable anymore. I'm 68, Brandon, not 98. My mind is perfectly clear. Of course it is, Heather said quickly. This isn't about that at all. This is just about simplifying your life so you can enjoy these years without stress. I'm not stressed. Mom, Brandon's voice had an edge now. Be honest, you've been forgetting things. Little things, sure, but it's concerning. Last time we had dinner, you couldn't remember the name of that restaurant we'd been to before. I remembered eventually. It just took me a moment. And you left your phone here 2 months ago. Didn't even realize it until we called you. People forget their phones, Brandon. That's not a sign of cognitive decline. The temperature in the room had shifted. Brandon sat back in his chair, studying me. Why are you being so resistant to help? I'm not resistant to help. I'm resistant to being treated like I'm incompetent when I'm not. Heather tried a different approach. Lori, we love you. We're just trying to be responsible. Your health, your future, these are things we need to plan for. I appreciate your concern, but I'm planning for my own future just fine. Brandon stood abruptly. Can we just take a break? I need to grab something from my office. As he left the room, Heather excused herself to get more coffee. I sat alone at the table, looking at the papers spread before me. Power of attorney, trust amendments, signature lines waiting for my name. I needed to see more. Needed to understand the full picture. When I heard Heather in the kitchen, running water, I stood quietly and walked down the hallway. Brandon's office door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open a few inches and peered inside. His desk was covered with papers, my heart pounding. I quickly pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Financial statements with red numbers, credit card bills, showing massive balances, a document from a bank labeled, Final Notice, Foreclosure Proceedings. My hands shook as I zoomed in on a letter from someone called Davidson Private Lending. Outstanding balance of $400,000, due in full by December 15th. December 15th was 60 days away. I heard footsteps and quickly stepped back from the office, tucking my phone into my pocket. Brandon appeared at the end of the hallway, watching me, looking for the bathroom. His voice was cold. Yes, sorry. I got turned around. It's the other direction. When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had completely changed. Brandon and Heather sat side by side, a united front. The papers were still on the table. Mom, I think we need to be direct here. Brandon's tone had shifted from concerned son to something harder. Your behavior lately has been erratic. Forgetting things, making poor decisions, becoming paranoid. Heather and I have been documenting it. Documenting what? Exactly? All the concerning incidents. We've talked to your neighbors. We've consulted with medical professionals. We're trying to help you, but you need to let us. This was it. The play. The move. I felt my pulse quicken, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not signing anything today. I'll take these papers home to review. Actually, Brandon said, our attorney is available this week. We've already scheduled an appointment for Wednesday. You, me, Heather, and the lawyer. We can get everything finalized properly. I said no. The word hung in the air. Brandon's face flushed. My phone buzzed. Gerald. Perfectly timed as we'd planned. I need to take this, I said, stepping away from the table. Gerald gave me an out. Bank issue. Needs a signature today. When I returned to the dining room, I picked up my purse. I need to leave. Gerald needs me to handle something urgent. Brandon stood, blocking my path to the front door. On a Sunday. Banking doesn't stop for weekends anymore. His voice dropped low. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. This is exactly what we're worried about. You're making poor decisions, being influenced by people who don't have your best interests at heart. Move, Brandon. Heather stood too, joining him. Lori, we love you, but you're scaring us. We need to help you, even if you don't think you need help. I said move. Something in my voice, some steel he wasn't expecting, made him step aside. I walked past both of them, out the door, to my car. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw them in the doorway, watching me. Brandon had his phone out, already calling someone. I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My whole body was trembling. I'd just seen my son, my only child, try to manipulate me into signing away my independence. And I'd seen something else in his eyes when I refused. Desperation. When I got home, there was an envelope on my doorstep. My name written on the front in formal calligraphy. Inside were legal documents, stamped and filed, in the matter of the conservatorship of Lori Ann Palmer. Brandon had already filed paperwork with the court. The petition cited concerns about my diminished capacity and vulnerability to financial exploitation. The hearing date was set for 3 weeks from now. I stood in my entryway, holding the papers, and felt something inside me crack open. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't a threat. This was a legal attack. Already in motion. My son was taking me to court, trying to have me declared incompetent, trying to take control of everything Arthur and I had built. They weren't counting on me being confused or scared. They were counting on me being too ashamed to fight back. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brandon's face, the son I'd raised, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose nightmares I'd soothed, whose college applications I'd proofread. That little boy was gone. In his place was a stranger who saw me as an obstacle to money he felt entitled to. By Monday morning, my shock had crystallized into something else. I called Gerald at 8 o'clock sharp. They already filed legal papers. The hearing is in 3 weeks. Gerald swore under his breath. Something I'd never heard him do. They moved faster than I expected. This isn't good, Lori. They're not just threatening anymore. They're executing a plan. What does this mean? Can they really do this? In California, anyone can petition for conservatorship. They'll need to prove to a judge that you're unable to care for yourself or manage your finances. The fact that they've already filed means they think they have enough evidence to make a case. Evidence they manufactured, yes. But a court doesn't know that yet. We need to move quickly. He paused. I'm calling Patricia Hoffman right now. She needs to see you today. Patricia's office was in downtown Los Angeles, on the 20th floor of a glass tower. She was in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and an air of complete competence. Her office walls were covered with framed certificates and awards. She read through the conservatorship petition carefully, making notes. This is aggressive, she said finally. Your son isn't wasting time. Can he win? Not if we do our job right. She looked up at me. But I need you to understand something. These cases get ugly. Family conservatorship battles are some of the most painful legal proceedings that exist. Are you prepared for that? He fired the first shot. I'm just defending myself. Patricia smiled grimly. Good, because we're going to hit back hard. She pulled out a legal pad. First, tell me about your health. Any real medical issues? High blood pressure, controlled with medication. That's it. Cognitive function? Memory? Any actual problems? None. I'm sharp. I manage my own finances, my own household. I volunteer, take classes, have an active social life. Good. We're getting you a complete medical evaluation, full cognitive testing, psychological screening, everything. I want documentation that you're in perfect mental health. Over the next week, I saw 3 different doctors. I took memory tests and cognition assessments. I answered hundreds of questions, solved puzzles, recalled lists of words. Every doctor reached the same conclusion. I was functioning at a completely normal level for my age. Better than normal, actually. Dr. Sarah Hughes, a neurologist, was particularly clear in her written report. Miss Palmer demonstrates excellent cognitive function across all domains. Memory, executive function, processing speed, and reasoning are all within normal limits. There is no evidence of dementia, mild cognitive impairment, or any other neurological condition affecting her capacity. She is fully competent to manage her own affairs. Patricia smiled when she read it. This is gold. Your son's entire case rests on you being incompetent. We're proving you're not. Meanwhile, Gerald worked on the financial evidence. He compiled everything: the unauthorized access logs, the downloaded documents, the IP addresses. He traced Brandon's consultations with the estate attorney, found the emails about elder care transitions. documented the neurologist appointment where Brandon lied about my symptoms. But it was Patricia who found the most damaging evidence. "Lori, look at this." She turned her computer screen toward me. "This is a loan application from 8 months ago. The lender flagged it as suspicious, which is why it was denied. But look at the signature on the application. It was my signature. Or rather, a very good forgery of my signature. I never applied for any loan." "I know. But someone did, using your information. They tried to use your house as collateral for a $200,000 loan. The lender caught it during verification when they called you and couldn't reach you at the number provided." My stomach dropped. "Brandon." The application came from his computer. Same IP address Gerald identified. This wasn't just conservatorship abuse. This was fraud, identity theft, criminal behavior. Patricia leaned back in her chair. "This changes everything. We're not just defending against a conservatorship petition anymore. We have grounds for criminal charges. Against my own son." Her expression softened slightly. "I know this is painful. But Lori, he tried to steal from you. He forged your signature, has attempting to have you declared incompetent so he can control your assets. These aren't the actions of a concerned son. These are the actions of someone committing financial elder abuse." I thought about the photos I'd taken in Brandon's office. The massive debt, the foreclosure notice, the private lender demanding $400,000. "Hes desperate," I said quietly. "They're drowning in debt. They need money now. And I'm sitting on millions. That doesn't excuse what he's doing. And it doesn't mean you have to be the solution to his problems. But part of me still wanted to be. Part of me still thought maybe I could help him, could save him from his bad decisions. He was my son. I'd spent 42 years protecting him, solving his problems, giving him what he needed. Patricia must have seen it in my face. "Don't," she said firmly. "Don't let guilt or love make you vulnerable. Hes counting on that. Hes counting on you being too kind, too understanding, too willing to help." That's how financial abusers operate, especially in families. That night, I sat alone in my living room, with a glass of wine I wasn't drinking. Photos of Brandon covered every surface. Baby pictures, school photos, wedding pictures. In every single one, he was loved, cherished, given every advantage. Had Arthur and I failed him somehow? Had we raised him to be entitled, to expect everything would be handed to him? Or was this just who he'd become? A man who saw his aging mother as a bank account with legs. My phone rang. "Brandon." I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Mom." His voice was strained. "We need to talk. I don't think we have anything to say to each other. Don't do this. Don't turn this into a fight. I'm trying to help you. By taking me to court, by trying to have me declared incompetent." Silence. Then, "You left me no choice. You're being manipulated by Gerald, by whoever else is in your ear. Someone needs to protect you from yourself. I don't need protection, Brandon. I need my son to trust me, to respect me." "Mom, please." Now his voice cracked, and for a moment he sounded like the little boy I remembered. "I'm in trouble. We're in real trouble. If I don't come up with money soon, we lose everything. The house. Everything." I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help. There it was. The truth, beneath all the legal maneuvering and medical allegations. He needed money, and had rather destroy our relationship than ask directly. If you needed help, you should have asked. Not plotted behind my back. Not tried to steal from me. I wasn't stealing. It's family money. It'll be mine eventually anyway. The casual entitlement in those words stunned me. "So you thought you'd just take it now? You don't need all of it. You're living alone in a house too big for you, sitting on millions you'll never spend. Meanwhile, we're drowning. Is that fair?" "Fair." My voice rose. "I worked for that money. Your father worked for it. We saved and invested and planned. That money represents 50 years of our lives, and you want it because you made bad decisions. We all make mistakes, Mom. Family is supposed to help when that happens. Not like this. Never like this." I hung up, and then I blocked his number. The next morning, Patricia called. The DA's office received our information about the forged loan application. They're reviewing it for possible criminal charges. How long will that take? Depends. But Lori, you should prepare yourself. If they file charges, Brandon could face arrest. My son, arrested. The thought made me physically ill. But what was the alternative? Let him get away with it? Let him successfully steal from me? Do what needs to be done, I told Patricia. 3 days before the conservatorship hearing, Brandon showed up at my house. I saw him through the window, pacing on my front porch. I didn't open the door. Mom, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. I stayed silent, my hand on my phone, ready to call the police if necessary. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry it went this far. But you can still fix this. Drop the opposition to the conservatorship. Let me help manage things. I promise I'll take care of you. Those words. I promise I'll take care of you. As if I were a child. As if I were incapable. Just open the door, Mom. Let's talk this through. Family shouldn't fight like this. But Head started this fight. Head drawn the battle lines. And now he was losing, so he wanted to negotiate. I watched him through the window until he finally gave up and left. And I felt something shift inside me. The part of me that wanted to protect him, to save him, to be his mother above all else. It was dying. Being replaced by something harder. Self-preservation. Self-respect. I would not let my son destroy me to save himself. The morning of the hearing, I dressed with care. A navy blue suit, pearl earrings Arthur had given me for our 30th anniversary. Sensible heels. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a competent, composed woman. Not a victim. Not someone who needed saving. Patricia met me at the courthouse. She carried 2 thick folders of evidence. Ready, she asked. Let's end this. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Judge Harold Mason presided, a man in his early 60s with gray hair and a stern expression. Brandon and Heather sat on one side with their attorney, a slick-looking man named Richard Torres. I sat on the other side with Patricia. We didn't look at each other, Brandon and I. I kept my eyes forward. Judge Mason reviewed the petition. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if there's sufficient cause to proceed with conservatorship proceedings. Mr. Torres, you may begin. Richard stood, smooth and confident. Your Honor, we're here today out of concern for Lori Palmer's well-being. Her son, Brandon Palmer, and his wife have observed a troubling decline in Mrs. Palmer's cognitive function and decision-making ability over the past year. He presented their evidence, instances of forgetfulness, the forgotten phone, the time I couldn't remember a restaurant name, the raw roast left on the counter. Heather's neighbor testimony claiming I seemed confused sometimes. Brandon's statement that I'd become resistant to help and paranoid about family. It sounded convincing, in a way. A narrative of gentle decline, of a family trying to help a stubborn elderly woman who wouldn't admit she needed assistance. Then Patricia stood. Your Honor, this isn't a case of family concern. This is a case of financial elder abuse, identity theft, and fraud. She presented our evidence methodically. The unauthorized access to my financial accounts from Brandon's IP address, the downloaded estate documents, the emails discussing incapacity planning before there was any actual incapacity, the fabricated neurologist appointment. Then she presented Dr. Hugh Hess' medical evaluation. Your Honor, Mrs. Palmer has undergone comprehensive cognitive testing by a board-certified neurologist. The results show absolutely no cognitive impairment. She is fully competent. Judge Mason read the medical report carefully. This evaluation is very recent. Yes, Your Honor. What's not normal is building a false narrative of incompetence to justify taking control of someone's assets. Your Honor, Richard interjected. My client's concerns are genuine. Are they? Patricia pulled out another document. This is a record of the petitioner's financial situation. Mr. Palmer is over $400,000 in debt. Has facing foreclosure on an investment property. He has a loan from a private lender due in 60 days. He needs money desperately. She pulled out another page. And this, Your Honor, is a loan application from 8 months ago. Someone tried to borrow $200,000 using Mrs. Palmer's house as collateral. The signature on the application is forged. The application came from Mr. Palmer's computer. The room went silent. Brandon's face had gone white. Judge Mason looked at Richard. Your client forged his mother's signature on a loan application. Richard was scrambling now. Your Honor, we have no knowledge of any such application. The IP address is documented. The signature analysis confirms forgery. And, Your Honor, the District Attorney's Office is currently reviewing this evidence for criminal prosecution. Judge Mason turned to Brandon. Mr. Palmer, did you attempt to take out a loan using your mother's property without her knowledge? Brandon stood, his voice shaking. It was a mistake. I thought she'd want to help. We were desperate. A yes or no answer, please. Yes, but I didn't think it would go through. And when it didn't, I didn't try again. You didn't try again, Judge Mason repeated slowly. So instead, you filed for conservatorship to gain legal control of her assets. No, that's not. We were genuinely concerned about her. Patricia stood again. Your Honor, I have 3 witnesses here today who can attest to Mrs. Palmer's competency, her longtime friends who interact with her regularly, who can speak to her sharp mind and independent living. Dorothy, Susan, and Margaret were called one by one. Each described our weekly lunches, our book club discussions, my volunteer work at the library. They spoke about my painting classes, my active social calendar, my complete independence. She's sharper than I am, Dorothy said, and the courtroom actually laughed quietly. She helps me with my computer problems. She manages her own finances. She's as competent as anyone I know. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke clearly and calmly. I described the systematic attempt to undermine my independence, the planted suggestions to neighbors, the fabricated medical concerns, the unauthorized access to my accounts. Your Honor, I'm not incompetent. I'm not declining. I'm a healthy, active woman who's being targeted by her own son because he needs money. I looked at Brandon for the first time. I would have helped you if you'd asked honestly, but you chose manipulation and theft instead. Richard Torres tried to salvage his case, but it was falling apart. He kept circling back to the concerning incidents, but Patricia demolished each one with evidence and expert testimony. Then came Brandon's turn to testify. Under Patricia's cross-examination, he contradicted himself repeatedly. He couldn't explain the unauthorized computer access. He stumbled over the neurologist appointment that never happened. And then, Patricia asked the question that ended it all. Mr. Palmer, why did you tell your mother's neighbors that she was experiencing cognitive decline when she wasn't? I thought she was. Based on what medical evidence? Just things I observed. Things like forgetting a phone once? Pausing to remember a restaurant name? These normal occurrences concerned you enough to consult a conservatorship attorney. We were worried about her future, or worried about your financial future. Patricia pulled out the foreclosure notice. You need $400,000 in 60 days, don't you? Brandon's attorney tried to object, but Judge Mason waved him off. Answer the question, Mr. Palmer. Yes, we're in debt, but that doesn't mean my concerns about my mother aren't real. Your Honor, Patricia said, there's a term for what Mr. Palmer is attempting. It's called predatory conservatorship, using the legal system to gain control of a competent person's assets for financial gain. It's a form of elder abuse, and it's what we're seeing here today. That's when Brandon broke. His voice rose, cracking with emotion. She's sitting on millions while we're drowning. It's not fair. That money should help us. We're family. The courtroom went still. Even Richard looked shocked. That money was my dad's. He worked his whole life for it. It should help his son, his grandson. Instead, she's hoarding it, living alone in that huge house, not even spending it. What's she saving it for? She's 68 years old. She'll never use all of it. Meanwhile, we're losing everything. Judge Mason's expression had gone from stern to angry. So your solution was to have your mother declared incompetent so you could access her money. I just needed help. I just needed her to understand. By lying about her mental state? By forging documents? By attempting to steal her independence? Brandon slumped in his chair, and I saw Heather crying beside him. That's when the courtroom door opened. A bailiff entered and approached the judge's bench, handing him a note. Judge Mason read it, his eyebrows rising. Mr. Palmer, I've just been informed that the district attorney's office has filed criminal charges against you for identity theft and attempted fraud regarding the forged loan application. There's a warrant for your arrest. 2 police officers entered the courtroom. Brandon looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. Your Honor, please, he started, but Judge Mason cut him off. The conservatorship petition is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Missus. Palmer is clearly competent and has been subjected to a malicious and abusive legal action. Mr. Palmer, you're in custody of these officers now. They led Brandon out in handcuffs. He looked back at me once, his face a mixture of shock and betrayal, as if I was the one who'd done something wrong. Heather ran after them, sobbing. I sat in the courtroom as it emptied, feeling numb. Patricia sat beside me, not speaking, just present. I just watched my son get arrested, I said finally. You just defended yourself from someone who was trying to destroy you. Patricia replied gently. Even if that someone is your son. Judge Mason approached before leaving. Mrs. Palmer, I'm sorry you had to go through this. Unfortunately, I see cases like this more often than you'd like. Family members who see elderly relatives as assets rather than people. You did the right thing fighting back. The right thing. It didn't feel right. It felt like the end of everything. The weeks after the hearing were strange. Brandon was released on bail, facing criminal charges that would likely result in probation, restitution payments, and community service. His attorney was working on a plea deal. Heather had moved back with her parents, and Brandon was living in a cheap apartment. His expensive rental house gone. They filed for bankruptcy, lost the investment property. The Audi was repossessed. Everything they'd bought with borrowed money, all those expensive furnishings and clothes and appearances of success, vanished like smoke. I got a restraining order. Brandon wasn't allowed to contact me, come near my house, or approach me in any way. Patricia said it was necessary for my protection, but it felt like the final severing of the cord between mother and child. The first month was the hardest. I'd wake up at 3 a.m, my heart pounding, replaying the courtroom scene. I'd see Brandon's face as they led him away in handcuffs, and I'd wonder if I'd done the right thing, if it'd been too harsh, if I should have found a way to help him instead of prosecute him. Dorothy, Susan, and Margaret rallied around me. They came over with wine and casseroles, sat with me while I cried, reminded me that I'd been the victim, not the perpetrator. You saved yourself. Susan said one evening as we sat on my back patio, he wasn't going to stop, Lori. If you'd let him get conservatorship, you'd have lost everything. Your house, your independence, your dignity. You had no choice. But I had been his mother. Didn't mothers always have a choice to help their children? Not when helping them means destroying yourself, Dorothy said firmly. That's not help. That's self-sacrifice to the point of self-destruction. And it wouldn't have helped him anyway. You just have enabled his bad behavior, taught him that manipulation and theft work as long as the victim loves you enough. Patricia connected me with a therapist, Dr. Emma Walsh, who specialized in family trauma. Our first session, I cried for 45 minutes straight. I feel like I failed him, I told her. Like Arthur and I must have done something wrong raising him for him to turn out this way. Or, Doctor, Walsh said gently. He made his own choices. He chose to accumulate debt beyond his means. He chose to see you as a solution to his problems rather than a person deserving respect. He chose manipulation over honesty. Those are his choices, not your failures. Slowly, over weeks and then months, I began to believe that. I started to see the situation more clearly. Brandon hadn't suddenly become this person because of the conservatorship attempt. Had been this person for a while, maybe always. The stress and debt had just revealed his true character. I thought about patterns I'd ignored over the years. How Head always blamed others when things went wrong. How Head expected Arthur and I to solve his problems. How Head never really seemed to consider what we wanted or needed, only what we could provide. Wed raised him with love, but maybe too much indulgence. Maybe Wed taught him that the world would always give him what he wanted, that there would always be someone to catch him when he fell. And now Head fallen. And I hadn't caught him. I'd let him hit the ground. For the first time in his life, Brandon was facing real consequences for his actions. 3 months after the hearing, I received a letter. It came through Patricia's office, respecting the restraining order, Brandon's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. The letter was 4 pages long. The first 3 pages were justifications. How stressed Head been. How Head truly believed I wasn't capable of managing alone. How Heather had convinced him it was the right thing to do. Blame shifting and excuses. But the final paragraph was different. Mom, I destroyed everything for money I didn't need as much as I needed you. I look back at what I did, at how I treated you, and I don't recognize myself. Or maybe I do. And that's worse. Maybe this is who I've always been, someone who takes without thinking about the cost to others. I'm sorry. Those words aren't enough. I know. But they're true. I'm sorry for trying to take your independence. I'm sorry for seeing you as an obstacle instead of my mother. I'm sorry for everything. I read it 3 times. Looking for manipulation, for angle. But it sounded genuine. Raw. Maybe for the first time in his life, Brandon was being completely honest. I showed it to Dr. Walsh. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to forgive him, to rebuild something. He's still my son. But part of me is so angry, so hurt, I don't know if I can." Those feelings can coexist. You can love him and be angry at him. You can forgive him eventually while still maintaining boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting him back into your life the way it was. It means releasing the poison of bitterness while protecting yourself. I didn't respond to the letter. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I kept it. Meanwhile, my own life was transforming. I channeled my energy into something positive. I became an advocate for elder financial abuse awareness. I gave talks at senior centers throughout Pasadena and Los Angeles, sharing my story, teaching others to recognize the warning signs. Financial abuse often comes from family. I'd tell rooms full of attentive seniors, your own children, your siblings, people you trust. They'll tell you they're helping. They'll say they're concerned about you, but if they're pressuring you to sign documents, to give them access to your accounts, to change your estate plans, that's not help. That's abuse. I helped establish a support group for elder abuse survivors. Listening to their stories, I realized how common this was. How many people, especially women, were targeted by family members who saw them as sources of money rather than human beings deserving respect. Through my advocacy work, I met Richard Hayes. He was 72, a retired high school teacher whose daughter had tried to manipulate him into signing over his pension. Head fought back, like I had, and won. Like me, Head turned his pain into purpose. We started as friends, bonding over our shared experiences. Then, slowly, it became something more. We took painting classes together, had long dinners where we talked about everything. Art, books, our marriages, our children, our regrets and hopes. He understood my complicated feelings about Brandon in a way nobody else could. "I still love my daughter," he told me one evening, "but I don't trust her. Maybe I never will again, and I've had to accept that's okay. Love doesn't require trust. Love doesn't require access to your life. You can love someone from a distance while protecting yourself." 6 months after the hearing, I had my first art show. A small gallery in Pasadena displayed 12 of my watercolors. Friends came to the opening. Dorothy, Susan, Margaret, Richard, members of my support group, people I'd met through advocacy work. The gallery was full of laughter and conversation and connection. I stood there, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, looking at art I'd created, and realized something. My life was better now than before the betrayal. Not despite what happened, but in some strange way, because of it. Brandon's attempt to control me had forced me to fight back, to discover strengths I didn't know I had, to advocate for myself and others, to build a community of real, authentic connections. I'd stopped being passive in my own life and started being active. 1 year after the hearing, I made a decision. I met with Patricia and Gerald to update my estate plan. "I want to set up a foundation in Arthur's name," I told them, "focused on elder abuse prevention and advocacy. I want to fund legal aid for seniors facing financial abuse from family members. I want to create educational programs." "How much are you thinking?" Gerald asked. $1 million to start. More over time. It meant less inheritance for Brandon eventually. But that money would do real good in the world, would protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Arthur would have approved. I also updated my will. Brandon was still in it, but with clear language. He'd inherit when I died, but through a trust with conditions. He'd have to demonstrate financial stability, complete therapy, maintain a job for at least 2 years. The money would come slowly, with oversight, ensuring he couldn't destroy himself with it. It wasn't punishment. It was protection, for him and for his potential future. Brandon completed his probation. The criminal charges were resolved with a plea deal. Guilty plea, restitution payments to me of $50,000 over 5 years, 200 hours of community service, mandatory financial counseling. Through Patricia, I heard updates. Had gotten a new job, a more modest position with steady income. He and Heather were divorced. He was living simply, no longer trying to project success he didn't have. 18 months after the hearing, I saw him at a grocery store. We both froze. The restraining order had expired, but Wed had no contact. He looked different. Thinner, older, tired, but also somehow clearer. Less of the false confidence, the smooth surface. More real. Mom, he said quietly. I nodded. Brandon, I won't bother you. You look good. Healthy. I am glad. He started to walk away, then stopped. I really am sorry. I know you probably don't believe that, but it's true. I think about what I did every day. I hate who I was. Then be someone different, I said. He nodded and walked away. I stood in the produce aisle, holding a bag of apples, and felt something release in my chest. Not forgiveness. Exactly. Not yet. But the beginning of something, the possibility that maybe, years from now, we might find a different kind of relationship. One built on honesty instead of expectations, respect instead of entitlement. Or maybe not. Maybe we'd always be estranged, and I'd have to accept that. Either way, it'd be okay. 2 years have passed since that urgent text from Gerald changed everything. I'm 70 now, and I've never felt more alive, more purposeful, more authentically myself. My foundation has helped 17 seniors fight back against financial abuse from family members. We've funded legal representation, provided education programs, created support networks. Each person we help feels like honoring Arthur's memory and turning my pain into something meaningful. Richard and I are together now. Not married, but committed. We both value our independence too much to combine households. But we spend most evenings together. Hez teaching me to garden, and I'm teaching him watercolor techniques. We travel, we laugh, we talk about everything. With him, I feel safe in a way I haven't since Arthur died. My friendships have deepened. Dorothy, Susan, Margaret, and I still have our Tuesday lunches. But now we also volunteer together, advocate together, support each other through everything life brings. These women showed up for me when I needed them most. That kind of friendship is precious beyond measure. I paint almost every day now. My work has improved dramatically, and I've sold several pieces. It's not about the money. It's about the act of creation, of bringing beauty into the world, of expressing what words can't capture. As for Brandon, we've had 3 conversations in 2 years. Brief, careful, civil. He sends a card on my birthday and Mother's Day. I respond with thank you notes. We're like polite strangers who share a history neither of us mentions. Maybe that will change. His therapist reached out through Patricia 6 months ago, asking if I'd consider family counseling sessions. I said maybe. Someday, but not yet. The wound is still too fresh. I need more time to be sure I'm healed enough to face him without falling back into old patterns. Because that's what I've learned. You can't help people by letting them hurt you. You can't love people by sacrificing yourself. Healthy relationships require boundaries, respect, honesty. When those things are absent, no amount of love or history or shared DNA makes the relationship worth preserving. I've learned that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Gerald, Patricia, Dr. Walsh, my friends, they saved me because I let them. I stopped trying to be strong by being alone and started being strong by building a support network. I've learned that fighting back when you're wronged isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. Setting boundaries isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. You teach people how to treat you, and if you accept abuse, you're teaching them it's acceptable. Most importantly, I've learned that you can survive betrayal and build something beautiful from the ruins. The person I am now, at 70, is stronger, wiser, more authentic than I've ever been. Brandon's attempt to destroy me ultimately freed me to become more fully myself. Some days I still feel sad about what happened. I grieve the relationship I thought I had with my son, the illusion of the family I believed we were. That grief comes in waves, especially on holidays or when I see mothers and adult sons who clearly love and respect each other. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful I discovered the truth before it was too late. Grateful I had the resources and support to fight back. Grateful for the life I've built in the aftermath, richer and more meaningful than what came before. If you're facing something similar, if someone you love is trying to control you, manipulate you, take advantage of you, please know this: you deserve better. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself. Fight back, ask for help, set boundaries, protect yourself, even when it breaks your heart. Family is supposed to be a sanctuary, but when it becomes a threat, you have the right, the responsibility, to save yourself. That's not betrayal. That's survival. That's self-love. And on the other side of that fight, you might discover, as I did, that you're stronger than you ever knew. That life can be fuller, richer, more authentic when you stop accepting less than you deserve. That sometimes losing what you thought you had opens space for something better. I'm standing in my Pasadena home right now, the home I fought to keep. Sunlight streams through the windows onto my latest painting, a landscape of the San Gabriel Mountains. In an hour, Richard is picking me up for dinner. Tomorrow, I'm giving a talk at a senior center in Glendale. Next week, my art class is going on a painting retreat to Ojai. My life is full. My life is mine, and nobody, not even my own son, can take that from me again. I look at the photo of young Brandon still sitting on my mantle. That innocent child, full of potential and promise. I mourn who he could have been, but I don't regret protecting myself from who he became. Because in the end, the most important relationship you have is with yourself. And I chose me. That choice saved my life and gave me the chance to build something better than I'd lost. If I could go back and change what happened, would I? Would I want Brandon to be the son I thought he was, to have never betrayed me, to still have that relationship? Some days, yes. But most days, honestly, no, because then I wouldn't have discovered my own strength. I wouldn't have built this community, helped these people, found Richard, created this art, become this version of myself. I paid a terrible price for these lessons, but I wouldn't trade who I am now for who I was before, even to avoid the pain of getting here. That's what I want you to understand. That you can survive betrayal, that you can fight back and win, that you can lose the relationships you thought defined you and discover you're still whole, still valuable, still capable of joy and purpose and love. Your life is yours. Your independence is precious. Your self-respect is non-negotiable. Don't let anyone, no matter how much you love them, convince you otherwise. I'm Lori Palmer. I'm 70 years old, and I'm just getting started. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who didn't respect you? Have you faced a situation where love and self-protection seemed to conflict? How did you navigate it? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else facing a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone or gave you courage to protect yourself, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, survival, and finding strength you didn't know you had. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear it. Anyone struggling with family manipulation or elder abuse. Together, we can break the silence around these issues and help others find the courage to fight back. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you something valuable, whether that's validation, courage, or simply the knowledge that you're not alone. Take care of yourselves, set those boundaries, and remember, you're worth protecting. Until next time, may you find the strength to choose yourself, the wisdom to know your worth, and the courage to fight for the life you deserve.